You've seen the headlines, you've heard the arguments, but how much of what you think you know about the AR-15 is actually true? Is it a military weapon repackaged for civilians? A high-powered menace that outclasses hunting rifles? Or just a misunderstood tool caught in a political firestorm? The answers might surprise you, and not for the reasons you expect. In this video, we're going beyond the noise to unpack the facts, strip away the assumptions, and explore the real story behind America's most controversial firearm. From its misunderstood origins and unexpected limitations to the demographic shifts and economic forces that shaped its rise, this isn't about taking sides, it's about understanding a symbol that means very different things to different people. Because once you see the full picture, the AR-15 stops being just a rifle and starts revealing something much deeper about America itself. The military myth. One of the most pervasive myths surrounding the AR-15 is its supposed identity as a military weapon. This narrative has been repeated so often that most Americans accept it without question. But here's where things get interesting, and where the facts diverge dramatically from popular belief. Contrary to what many assume, the United States military does not use AR-15 rifles in combat operations. Not a single soldier carries an AR-15 into battle. Not one. This might seem like shocking news if you've been following mainstream media coverage, but it's absolutely true. The confusion stems from the visual similarity between the AR-15 and the military's M16 or M4 carbine. They look nearly identical to the untrained eye, but their functionality differs in critical ways. The distinction lies in their firing capabilities. Military rifles like the M16 are select-fire weapons capable of fully automatic fire or 3-round bursts with a single trigger pull. The AR-15, by contrast, is exclusively semi-automatic, firing just 1 bullet per trigger pull, exactly like most hunting rifles and many handguns used for self-defense. This fundamental difference isn't a minor technical detail, it represents an entirely different class of firearm under federal law. The family resemblance isn't coincidental, of course. The earliest AR-15 prototype was developed for military consideration, but the version that reached civilian hands underwent significant modifications to remove military capabilities. When you hear someone claim that weapons of war are being sold to civilians, remember this crucial distinction. They're referring to cosmetic similarities, not functional ones. The power paradox. Perhaps the most stunning revelation for many people is that the standard AR-15 is significantly less powerful than traditional hunting rifles. Yes, you read that correctly. The firearm, often portrayed as extraordinarily deadly, actually fires a relatively small caliber round with less energy and penetration than many common hunting rifles. The standard AR-15 fires a .223 Remington or 5.56 NATO round, a small bullet typically weighing between 55 and 90 grains. To put this in perspective, the bullets fired by your grandfather's classic deer hunting rifle are often 2 to 3 times heavier and deliver substantially more energy upon impact. This isn't gun lobby propaganda, it's basic physics. The reality is so dramatic that numerous states actually prohibit using AR-15s with standard ammunition for deer hunting, not because they're too deadly, but because they're considered too weak for ethical harvesting. States like Colorado and Washington require a minimum caliber of 6mm for deer hunting, larger than the standard AR-15 round, to ensure clean, humane kills. The light bullet of the AR-15 struggles in windy conditions, loses effectiveness at longer ranges, and simply doesn't deliver the terminal performance of larger hunting calibers. This power paradox reveals how deeply misconceptions about this firearm have penetrated public discourse. The weapon described as too powerful for civilian use is simultaneously considered too underpowered for ethical hunting in many jurisdictions. Both narratives cannot simultaneously be true, yet they persist in different contexts, serving different agendas. The chameleon gunman. Why defining the AR-15 is harder than you think? What exactly is an AR-15? This seemingly simple question has a surprisingly complex answer. one that confounds legislation and fuels endless debate. Unlike many other firearms with specific definitions, the AR-15 has evolved from a single model into an entire category of modular rifles. Similar to how 1911 refers to a style of handgun rather than a specific manufacturer's product, AR-15 now represents a platform, a basic design that countless companies produce with various modifications and improvements. This versatility is precisely what makes the AR-15 both immensely popular among enthusiasts and extraordinarily difficult to regulate effectively. The modular nature of the AR-15 platform means that nearly every component can be customized, from the stock to the barrel length, trigger mechanism, and even the caliber of ammunition. A single lower receiver, the part legally considered the firearm, can be configured into countless different rifles serving widely different purposes. This adaptability explains why the platform has become so prevalent in competitive shooting, home defense, and recreational markets. The AR-15's chameleonic nature creates a regulatory nightmare. Attempts to ban specific features often result in superficial modifications that comply with the letter of the law while preserving the weapon's core functionality. This dynamic played out dramatically during the 1994 federal assault weapons ban, when manufacturers simply removed prohibited features like bayonet lugs and flash suppressors while continuing to sell essentially the same rifles. The historical twist, from military rejection to civilian obsession. The origin story of the AR-15 contains ironic twists that few people know. The rifle that would become America's most popular sporting firearm initially faced skepticism and outright rejection from the very military it was designed to equip. The journey began in the late 1950s when the Armalite Corporation developed the AR-15 prototype. Struggling financially, Armalite sold the design to Colt, who refined it and eventually secured its adoption by the U.S. military as the M16. However, this was just the beginning of a complicated relationship between the platform and the American public. The civilian AR-15 emerged as Vietnam veterans returned home familiar with the platform's handling and operation. What started as a niche market gradually expanded as the rifle's merits became more widely recognized. The lightweight design, low recoil, and incredible accuracy made it accessible to shooters of all sizes and skill levels, attributes that would eventually transform it from military cast-off to civilian phenomenon. What many don't realize is that the AR-15's popularity explosion is relatively recent. For decades after its introduction, the rifle remained a relatively obscure option in the civilian market, overshadowed by traditional wood-stocked hunting rifles and shotguns. It wasn't until the early 2000s that the platform began its meteoric rise to become the dominant centerpiece of American gun culture. This historical trajectory reveals something important. The AR-15's current cultural significance wasn't inevitable. Rather, it emerged through a complex interplay of marketing, evolving shooter preferences, and, ironically, the increased focus placed on it by attempts to restrict its availability. The demographic surprise. Who really owns AR-15s? When media coverage depicts AR-15 owners, certain stereotypes predominate, usually involving politically conservative men with military backgrounds. The reality of AR-15 ownership in America is far more diverse and might challenge your assumptions about who gravitates toward this platform. The modern AR-15 owner defies easy categorization. Women represent one of the fastest-growing demographics embracing this platform, often citing the rifle's adjustable stock and manageable recoil as features that make it more accessible than traditional firearms. The AR-15's ergonomics and customizability allow it to fit shooters of vastly different sizes and strengths, making it uniquely adaptable to a diverse user base. Urban professionals, competitive shooters, and first-time gun owners increasingly choose AR-15s for home defense and recreational use. Liberal gun club membership has swelled with progressive firearm enthusiasts who reject the assumption that gun ownership, even of AR-15s, must align with conservative politics. Perhaps most surprisingly, the AR-15 platform has become the entry point for many newcomers to firearm ownership. The rifle's popularity means abundant training resources, widely available parts, and a large community of users willing to provide guidance to beginners. For many Americans purchasing their first firearm, these factors make the AR-15 less intimidating than more traditional options. The economic reality. Behind the political battles and media narratives lies an economic reality few consider. The AR-15 has transformed from controversial weapon to industrial powerhouse. This firearm category has become the cornerstone of the American gun industry, with profound implications for both manufacturing and retail sectors. The National Shooting Sports Foundation reports that AR-15 style rifles accounted for an estimated 61% of all civilian rifle sales in recent years. With Americans owning more than 15 million of these firearms, the platform has achieved a market dominance that would be impressive in any industry. This prevalence translates into billions in economic activity, supporting thousands of jobs across manufacturing, distribution, and retail channels. The AR-15's impact extends beyond direct sales. An entire ecosystem of accessories, upgrades, training courses, and specialized services has emerged around the platform. From custom builders crafting high-end competition rifles to small machine shops producing specialized components, the AR-15 has spawned numerous entrepreneurial opportunities across the country. This economic footprint helps explain the fierce resistance to proposed restrictions. Beyond Second Amendment concerns, potential bans threaten livelihoods, investments, and communities built around this industrial sector. Any serious discussion of AR-15 regulation must acknowledge these economic realities and the communities that would be affected. The Legal Labyrinth. Few aspects of the AR-15 discussion are more confusing than its legal status. A patchwork of federal, state, and local regulations that has evolved through decades of legislative battles. Understanding this regulatory maze reveals much about the challenges facing both gun rights advocates and those seeking additional restrictions. The 1994 federal assault weapons ban represented the most significant national regulation of AR-15 style rifles, prohibiting the manufacture of certain configurations for civilian use. When this legislation expired in 2004, it created a natural experiment in gun policy with hotly contested results. Some studies suggest the ban had limited impact on overall gun violence, while others point to potential reductions in mass shooting casualties during the ban's enforcement. Today's legal landscape varies dramatically by location. Some states maintain strict prohibitions on AR-15 style rifles, while others impose no restrictions beyond federal requirements. This geographic inconsistency creates borders where a law-abiding gun owner might become a felon simply by crossing a state line, a situation that frustrates advocates on both sides of the issue. Future regulation faces significant hurdles beyond political opposition. The AR-15's modularity makes effective legislation challenging to craft and enforce. Ban certain features, and manufacturers quickly develop compliant versions that function similarly. Prohibit specific models, and the market shifts to legally distinct but functionally similar alternatives. This adaptability has turned legislative efforts into a regulatory game of whack-a-mole. How the AR-15 transcended weaponry. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the AR-15 story is how a firearm transcended its physical form to become a powerful cultural symbol. For supporters and opponents alike, the AR-15 now represents far more than just a rifle. It has become a vessel for broader cultural and political meanings. For many enthusiasts, owning an AR-15 represents a statement about individual liberty, constitutional rights, and resistance to government overreach. The rifle has become a tangible embodiment of Second Amendment principles and a symbol of the right to self-determination. This symbolic value often exceeds the weapon's practical utility, explaining why many owners who rarely shoot their rifles nevertheless consider them essential possessions. Conversely, for gun control advocates, the AR-15 epitomizes everything problematic about American gun culture, a visible reminder of legislative failures and the perceived prioritization of gun rights over public safety. The rifle's prominence in mass shooting coverage has cemented its image as the weapon of choice for such tragedies, regardless of statistical realities. Both perspectives contain elements of truth and exaggeration, yet they demonstrate how thoroughly the AR-15 has been transformed from object to icon. Any path forward in America's gun debate must acknowledge this cultural dimension, as regulations targeting physical features will inevitably clash with deeply held symbolic attachments. So there you have it, the shocking truths about America's most misunderstood firearm. From its military rejection to civilian embrace, from its surprising lack of power to its economic significance, the AR-15 story is far more complex than either side of the debate often admits. Whether these revelations reinforce your existing views or challenge them, I hope they've provided you with a more nuanced understanding of this controversial weapon. The conversation about firearms in America deserves better than sound bites and oversimplifications. It requires honest engagement with uncomfortable facts. If you found this video enlightening, do more than just hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who holds strong opinions about AR-15s, whether for or against. And start a conversation based on facts rather than fear. Drop a comment below with your biggest takeaway or questions about anything we've covered.